The Haunted Narrator. The Night Shift Chronicles. Episode 5. The Museum After Hours.
Museums are strange at night. The grandeur becomes eerie, the exhibits transform from educational displays into silent watchers. I've worked security at the Harmon Museum of Natural History for 3 years now. It's usually a quiet job: patrol the halls, check the exhibits, make sure everything's secure. But one night changed everything I thought I knew about history, and about what remains behind when we're gone. The Harmon isn't one of those massive metropolitan museums, but it's respected in academic circles. We house several significant collections: geological specimens, local indigenous artifacts, and our crown jewel, a special exhibition of ancient Egyptian artifacts on loan from Cairo. Nothing as famous as King Tut, but impressive nonetheless. Funerary items, canopic jars, and the partially unwrapped mummy of a priest named Amenhotep. I wasn't supposed to work that night. I traded shifts with Morgan so he could attend his daughter's recital. My regular shift was weekends, but this was a Tuesday in late November. The museum had been closed to the public for a special cleaning of the Egyptian exhibition, which meant I was completely alone in the building. The first few hours passed uneventfully. I made my rounds, checking each gallery methodically. The museum was divided into 3 wings around a central rotunda. The Egyptian exhibition occupied the east wing, regional history the west, and natural sciences the north. At approximately 1:30 a.m., I just finished my second round of checks and had settled in the security office to review camera feeds. That's when I first noticed it. A temperature anomaly in the Egyptian wing. The climate control system monitored conditions throughout the museum, and the display showed the temperature in the Egyptian gallery had dropped nearly 15 degrees in the span of 10 minutes. This was concerning. Those artifacts required precise environmental conditions. I radioed maintenance, but remembered they weren't on site. I have to check it myself. As I approached the Egyptian wing, I could feel the temperature drop. My breath formed clouds in front of me, which made no sense. The climate system should have been working to raise the temperature, not allowing it to fall further. The Egyptian gallery consisted of a series of connected rooms, each one growing progressively colder as I moved deeper into the exhibition. In the final room, where the mummy of Amenhotep was displayed in a sealed glass case, the temperature was cold enough to make my fingers ache. The case itself was fogged over from the inside, obscuring the mummy from view. I approached the display, concerned that the temperature fluctuation might damage the ancient remains. As I came closer, I noticed something odd. The condensation on the glass wasn't random. There appeared to be markings, as if someone had drawn on the fogged surface from inside the case. I leaned in closer, trying to make sense of the markings. They resembled hieroglyphics, crude but deliberate. I took out my phone and snapped a few photos, planning to show them to the exhibition curator in the morning. As the flash from my phone illuminated the case, the condensation suddenly cleared, giving me a clear view of the mummy inside. What I saw made me stumble backward, nearly falling over a bench. The mummy's position had changed. When the museum closed, Amenhotep had been laying flat on his back, arms crossed over his chest in the traditional burial pose. Now, his withered head was turned to the side, facing directly toward me. One desiccated arm had moved, the hand now pressed against the glass. This was impossible. The mummy was over 3,000 years old, its joints ossified, its tendons long since turned to dust. Movement wasn't just unlikely, it was physically impossible. I convinced myself it was a prank. One of the curators must have repositioned the mummy during the cleaning and forgotten to mention it. The markings were probably left by the cleaning crew. The rational explanations calmed me enough to continue my duties. I made a note in the log about the temperature issue and continued my patrol. By the time I completed another round of the museum, the temperature in the Egyptian wing had returned to normal. I decided to check the display case again to see if the condensation had cleared. The markings were gone, the glass clear, and the mummy had returned to its original position, lying flat with arms crossed. Relief washed over me, confirming my theory that I'd simply been seeing things, or that someone had accessed the case earlier. Until I noticed the footprints. Leading away from the display case across the polished floor were dusty, bare footprints. They were small, narrow, and had a strange gait, as if whoever made them wasn't accustomed to walking. The trail led out of the Egyptian gallery, into the main corridor. I followed the prints, my flashlight beam illuminating each dusty step. They led through the central rotunda and into the north wing, where our natural science exhibits were housed. The footprints ended at our geology display, specifically at a glass case containing various mineral specimens collected from around the world. One of the specimens was missing a chunk of reddish stone labeled iron oxide compound, Abydos, Egypt. According to the small information card, it had been found in the same tomb complex as the mummy. I immediately called my supervisor, reporting a possible theft. He instructed me to check the security footage while he contacted the curator and the police. The footage showed nothing. According to the cameras, the display case had never opened, the mummy had never moved, and no footprints had appeared on the floor. Yet the mineral specimen was undeniably missing, and the dusty footprints were clearly visible to the naked eye. By the time my supervisor and the curator arrived, things had gotten worse. The footprints had disappeared, seemingly evaporated into the air. The mummy remained in its original position. I looked like a fool, or worse, a potential thief trying to cover my tracks with an outlandish story. But the mineral specimen was still missing, which saved me from outright dismissal. The case showed no signs of tampering, which puzzled everyone involved. The museum director was called in, and a full investigation was launched. During the commotion, I slipped away to check something. I'd remembered reading the information panel about Amenhotep. He hadn't been just any priest, he'd been a high priest of Khnum, the ram-headed god associated with creation and the source of the Nile. More importantly, he'd been a known practitioner of Heka Egyptian magic. The panel mentioned that Amenhotep was buried with magical implements and materials believed necessary for performing rituals in the afterlife. One essential component had been a special red stone thought to hold magical properties. I found the curator alone in his office, reviewing the exhibition inventory. The missing mineral specimen, I said without preamble. Was it originally part of the mummy's grave goods? He looked up, surprised. Yes, actually. How did you know? Just a hunch, I replied. What was its significance? According to the hieroglyphics in Amenhotep's tomb, the red stone was central to a ritual that allowed the dead to temporarily reanimate to complete unfinished business. The ancient Egyptians believed certain priests could use Heka to briefly return to their bodies if they were buried with the proper materials. He chuckled nervously. Obviously just superstition. Obviously, I echoed, but neither of us sounded convinced. The investigation continued for weeks. Security was heightened, experts were consulted, and every inch of the museum was searched. The red stone was never found. 2 months later, we received correspondence from the Cairo Museum. They requested the immediate return of the entire exhibition, citing concerns about preservation protocols. Reading between the lines, they were unhappy about our misplacing an artifact. The night before the exhibition was to be packed for return, I was again on duty. I felt compelled to visit Amenhotep one last time. As I stood before the case, I noticed something clutched in the mummy's withered hand that hadn't been there before, a small scrap of papyrus. The case hadn't been opened, the seals were intact. Yet somehow, this object had appeared inside. Against all protocols, I opened the display case. The alarm systems had been disconnected in preparation for the exhibition's removal, so no alerts sounded. I carefully extracted the papyrus fragment from the mummy's crypt. On it were hieroglyphics, freshly drawn in what looked like red-brown ink. I couldn't read them, of course, but I took photos before returning the papyrus to the mummy's hand and resealing the case. The next day, I showed the photos to a graduate student I knew in the university's Egyptology department. Her face paled as she translated. "Where did you get this?" she demanded. "Just tell me what it says," I insisted. She swallowed hard. "It says, the dead know when they are seen. The debt is paid. Remember me." The exhibition was packed and returned to Cairo. The investigation into the missing stone was officially closed as an unsolved theft. I kept my job, though I was moved to daytime shifts for a while. Months later, I received a small package from Egypt with no return address. Inside was a chunk of red stone and a note in careful handwriting. Some artifacts find their way home on their own. Some secrets should remain buried. Amenhotep has crossed to the field of reeds. Do not speak his name again. I never told anyone about the package. The stone sits in a box in my closet. Sometimes, late at night, I think I can hear it scraping against the box lid, as if trying to escape. On those nights, I whisper an apology to a priest who died thousands of years ago, whose rest I somehow disturbed. I still work night security, but not at museums. Some things are meant to stay in the past, and some debts, once paid, should remain settled. The ancient Egyptians believed that to speak a name was to give power, to grant existence. So I never speak his name aloud. But sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I swear I hear footsteps with a strange, uneven gait, as if made by someone not used to walking. And I wonder what other ancient things might be watching us from behind glass cases, waiting for the lights to go out.